Hello, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, back to bring you another headphone review today. And we are going to take a look at the HiFiMan HE1000 version 2, or HEC-V2 for short. Now, I wanted to talk about this one a little bit because, for one thing, I own this one. Like, this one is mine, and I put some time into getting a good deal on it, building a signal chain for it, and that sort of thing. So it also serves as kind of my personal high-end reference headphone for the time being, right? So it is now a discontinued model, I believe. However, there is still a fair amount of units in stock available at different retailers around the web. Like, I'm pretty sure Apos and Audio 46 and Moon Audio and all that, they have a few of these. However, when that stock runs out, I think these are done. But where the real interesting part with this one comes in is that you can frequently find these used in about the $1,400 to $1,800-ish range. And at that point, I think the value proposition gets absolutely huge, right? And so I wanted to dive into this one today for a few reasons in that regard. So I think the value here is incredible, particularly if you get it used, but it's still worth it at its retail price at just shy of $3,000, like $2,995 or something like that, US dollars. Okay. But yeah, used, huge value. Now, again, this one is mine. I own this, and it has served as a reference. And as I've gotten deeper into audio reviews, it has shown itself to become more and more valuable in terms of helping me place other headphones like within the market. Like, are those headphones giving you the right price to performance ratio where they are priced and that sort of thing? And so it's helped me with that question. And also, it has become a bit of a palate cleanser for me between reviews. Like, if you've been following my young channel, which, by the way, please like and subscribe, but if you've been following my young channel here, you've seen that I just got through a wave of Focal products, okay? And so, after I'm done with one wave of gear, I can put this on for a night or two, kind of recenter myself, cleanse my palate a little bit, okay, my ear palate, which is weird, and then move on to the next wave of reviews. And I do have a next wave of reviews coming for you of different gear, so please stay tuned and all of that. But I have used this one in other reviews, like for the Meze Empyrean Elite and for the Focal Stellia I mentioned in there, and even the Odyssey LCD-R when I reviewed that one. Like, I've mentioned this one in here in comparison. So let's dive into this one a little bit more with that. So we'll start with ergonomics, okay, and the way it's built and all of that. I mean, it has a fairly simple utilitarian industrial design that's just dressed up a little bit, right? It's got the classic HiFiMan egg-shaped line aesthetic going on, but they kind of gave it this matte silverish finish. Okay, here, and then they just put this wooden veneer here on the outside of the cup just to make it look a little bit more attractive, but I'm pretty sure it's a fairly light aluminum under there. Now, it is fairly well built. Like, it's the band here has some good clamp force to it. Now, some people get annoyed by the leather strap flopping around here, the suspension strap. And, okay, I mean, I get that to a degree. Like, it doesn't bother me because, like, I don't just sit there and look at it. If it's on a stand, you don't notice it. Like, it doesn't affect how it sits on the head at all with that floppy headband there. So, to me, that's just whatever. But I do understand that some people don't like that. Beyond that, this is a little bit older unit than some. It has dual 2.5mm input on the cups. The newer models or newer editions of this, I think, have moved to a 3.5mm, but also it's nice that the jacks here are flush mounted, like they're not recessed or anything like that. So you can use just about any aftermarket cable that you want with this headphone. Now, that's important because here is one of the stock cables, okay, that comes with it. And just like hold this around here. Like, this was just sitting on a little table in front of me, and you saw how it got that tangled. Now, 3 cables came with my unit. One was this XLR terminated balanced, and again with the dual 2.5mm connectors there. And then there was a shorter 1/4 inch terminated single-ended cable, and then a long 1/4 inch terminated cable. And like this balanced XLR cable, can't quite see it, but like it's longer than my wingspan, which is about 6 feet, and there's about another 3-ish feet or so to go. So it's somewhere around a 9-foot cable. Probably close to 3 meters for those on the metric system, which we should be, but that's not another matter. Okay, but this cable, I mean, it sounds fine sonically. Like to replace these stock cables direct from HiFiMan, it's like between $350 and $500 US. So there's something going on with these cables in terms of like their sonics are pretty good, but they're just made really weirdly. Like this plastic tubing that you can just kind of see like has a lot of memory, and it kinks up when I don't pull it tight, right? It's basically medical tubing, right? They're just plastic medical tubing that they put the conductors through, and it gets tangled up. It feels weird. It's not nice to use. And also, it just makes weird and kind of uncomfortable sounds. I don't know if the mic will pick this up. But the two conducting wires in there, like they're not woven together at all or twisted up or anything. They're just in there. And so they slide past each other. And so like, I'm done with that, right? Okay. The person who sold me this set that I got used sent me this nice Plus Sound Poetic GPH cable, and yeah, I mean, I would really plan on sinking some money into an aftermarket cable for this headphone because, yeah, that stock cable is just nasty. Okay. So anyway, on to the sound. Big, right? Like the whole HiFiMan egg-shaped line here just has an enormous sound stage. And this certainly can do that, okay? Like before I had this one, I owned the Edition X V2, which huge expansive soundstage, excellent imaging and separation within that soundstage, very tall stage too, not just wide, and some depth. And then the Aria came along, and I reviewed that one, and I'll put a link to that written review down below. And like it just said to the Edition X V2, hold my beer, basically, and just became even more expansive within that in that sound stage in all 3 dimensions, imaged and separated even better than the Edition X V2 and all of that. But like the differences in the sound signatures between those two were noticed. Like the Edition X V2 was a little bit warmer, a little bit smoother, more relaxed. The Aria was brighter. It had more detail retrieval. It had a more textured sound. And it was maybe like, it was bass lean, but it might be just a little bit more dynamic and punchy than the Edition X V2 was. And I like all of those features save the Aria's aggressive brightness. Like, how can I combine all of those two? And this, okay? The HEC V2, excuse me, combines the best sonic elements of the Edition X V2 in terms of you get that warmth and fullness and the smoothness and relaxedness to the sound. But then you also get the detail retrieval that the Aria brings. You got the improved staging that Aria had, again, over the Edition X V2. Right? And all of those things, but even better yet, right? Like it's another level, maybe 2 or 3 levels of improvement beyond what the Aria was able to bring there. So it really did bring the best of both worlds of the Edition X V2 and the Aria together, improve upon all of it, and there it was. So I really enjoyed that for this reason. Now, signature-wise, like I mentioned there, the warmth is there. But this is a little bit of a V-shaped signature. Okay, there is a little bit of a boost in the sub bass that's centered around 40-50 hertz, I think, where the bass, that really deep sub bass is actually boosted a bit above neutral. And then the mid-range is not necessarily scooped, but it is a little bit lower than the low bass, and then there's a shelf a bit up in the treble region. So it does have a slight V shape to it. which some are going to object to, and I get that. That's just a preference thing. Like, a complaint about this one is that the mid-range is a little bit too recessed and thin, and I mean, if that's true to your ears, like, I can't argue with that complaint. Like, the signature is definitely that. Now, I have a little bit of that 1 kilohertz sensitivity, so this matches my hearing really well on that, and from a signature standpoint. Now, the treble here can also be a little bit bright at times. This thing is amp picky, and where it shows up first and foremost is in that treble. If you put this on a really detail-forward, analytical, bright, aggressive amp, like, that treble will get hot and sharp and sibilant and can become piercing and can be a bit of a deal breaker. So those are kind of like the two complaints that are out there about this headphone in terms of the sound. The mids are too recessed, which that's a preference thing. If that doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. And then the treble can be hot and sharp. And I think that has more to do with amp pairings than it does the actual performance of this headphone. Much like a beyerdynamic in that regard. Like, the treble can sound absolutely phenomenal on those, but you put them on the wrong amps and they will poke holes in your eardrums, right? Okay, so that a similar thing kind of happens there. Okay, but resolution, excellent. I have heard this resolve in some ways better than headphones that cost up to $4,000. It's relaxed in its detail presentation. Like, it does not announce that that resolution like an example I could think of would be the Abyss Diana Phi. I thought that one was just over aggressive in its resolution and detail retrieval, and it's just like, hey, I'm resolving. You see how resolving I am? Where this one, it just kind of quietly goes about it, doing its own resolution. Now, the Diana Phi is more resolving than this one. I will give it credit for that, like, noticeably so. But that's also $1,000 more than this one. Okay. So there's that. So a big, warm, relaxed sound. The timbre on this, I think, is really great. Some people, again, think the mid-range is a little too thin, but for me, it works. And really great timbre. Now, I have heard better timbre in, like, the Odyssey LCD 2.4. I thought that headphone had really good mid-range timbre when there was, like, only 3 or fewer vocalists, and, like, you're listening to a string quartet kind of thing where there's just not a ton going on in the mids. That one had just stellar timbre through the mid-range. This one gains an advantage in that it keeps its cool when music gets really busy. Okay, and what I mean by that is, like, a couple of mid-range torture tests that I know of would be The Poet and the Pendulum by Nightwish, and then the 1812 Overture as performed by Eric Kunzel and the Cincinnati Pops Orchestra. And actually, I will link to both of those tracks down in the description below so you can check them out too. Like, in the former, you've got a full power metal band, you have an orchestra backing it up, you've got male and female vocals, and then they throw an electric guitar and violin dueling solo on top of all of that. And this one keeps it cool and separates all of that out and resolves it better than any headphone that I've heard, save that Abyss Diana Phi. But it's also, like, I think does it with better timbre through the mids than the Diana Phi does. Likewise, with that version of 1812 Overture that I just mentioned, where you have, of course, a full symphony orchestra going on. You have, they add a vocal choir and a bell choir in that rendition, and then they have real cannon fire on top of all of that. And then, of course, in the finale of that piece, like, everything just gets big and loud and bombastic, right? It's a festival overture. And this, again, keeps its cool, where everything else that I've heard, save the Diana Phi, kind of turns it into mush to varying degrees. This one holds it all together really well. And then it's not overwhelming. It's still big and dynamic and impressive in that regard, but, like, it doesn't separate out or resolve quite as well as that Diana Phi. But again, I give it a timbre edge there because the mids are not so forward and aggressive. The resolution is not so forward and aggressive. And this one just sounds bigger and more expansive than the Diana-Fi, which I think has to do with, the shape of the pads and all of that. So again, like, I know that there are better headphones out there. Like, I haven't gotten up to the level of Susvara or the Abyss 1266 yet, and that sort of thing. But in terms of the headphones that I've been able to hear, like, over the range of technicalities, this one is just one of the more well-rounded, high-performing headphones that I have heard yet. And so that's one reason that I keep it around. I review a bunch of stuff, and so when it's just time for me to enjoy my music, this is one of my favorites, and I grab it, and off I go for some musical enjoyment. So I do have a written review of this that was published several months ago on HeadFi and Hi-Fi Guides forum, so if you want even more details about all of what I just said, including some more detailed comparisons with some of the other high-end headphones that I just named in this video, click the links below for those written reviews. So I am Wave Theory. I have been doing written reviews of sound gear, mostly headphone gear, on HeadFi and Hi-Fi Guides forum for over a year now, and so this is still a relatively new YouTube channel. But if you like what you see, please like, subscribe, and all of those things. And until I see you again, enjoy the music.